This video will not be monetized. I am not monetizing this video because the only payback I want is justice. Justice for Erik. Whoever did this, the person or persons that did this unjust crime to him, need to be found and brought to justice. What's going on YouTube? Today I am in Dutton Cemetery, somewhere in the West Michigan area. This one's gonna be a sad one, guys. It's not a famous grave, but this kid's story definitely needs to be told. And then I'll tell you more later. I can remember being a 16-year-old kid. That was the best time of my life, being 16. My friends, school, things I did, all the fun we had. So many amazing memories of being a 16-year-old boy. Man, I wish I could go back to those times. What's your favorite memory of being a 16-year-old? Leave a comment below. Definitely some very old headstones here. Man, I can remember a lot of things, not everything I did when I was 16, but I remember just always hanging out with my best friend Tim. Tim and I would ride our bikes everywhere. We would go to, the movies, things like that. We did so much fun stuff. I definitely really There's definitely some beautiful memorials here. It's not a very big cemetery, it's awful small. Definitely feels some very, sadness here for real. Like I was saying, I was 16. We just did so much fun. I can remember Sweet 16 and having your sweet 16th birthday party and just enjoy being with friends and family and so much. You only get to be 16 once. How many of you ever went to parties when you were 16? I know I have, attended a few parties and stuff myself. I just remember having fun being a 16-year-old little, not little, but 16-year-old kid, just enjoying life. Well, we're here today to visit the grave of Erik Cross. He was a 16-year-old boy, but his life tragically ended after he attended a party. And I'm going to tell you his story.
34 years after 16-year-old Erik Cross was killed, Kalamazoo County prosecutors are deciding whether to charge multiple people who may have been involved in his death.
The ball is in the court of the prosecutor. We expect to hear, yes, I'm arresting these people. There's no...
Jackie Mitchell, who was 12 when her brother was killed, says she met the undersheriff yesterday. He told her his office was sending the file to the prosecutor's office for review to consider open murder charges.
Yes, definitely one step closer. I mean, this is, further than the case has ever gotten in 34 years.
Cross's body was found in Brady Township in 1983. He had gone to a party and was walking home when he was killed. Brenton Spalding is a primary person of interest in the death.
Brent Spalding has told multiple people that he killed my brother, so I believe Brent Spalding when he says, I murdered your brother.
Undersheriff Matches said in March of 2016, investigators had 5 suspects in the case. Although the sheriff's office has presented a case to the prosecutor's office, it's still up to the prosecutor, Jeff Getting, to review the case and to decide whether the charges are relevant. Mitchell says this is just the first step in a long process.
I am happy, I'm relieved, I'm grateful. I will be jumping for joy when the arrests are made and those people are in jail. I'll be jumping for joy even. Take a guilty plea, confess, get this over with swiftly so they don't continue to torture my mother.
Today, Undersheriff Paul Matches told he wanted to move this case along as far as he could before he retired. He retired today.
And we're still not, ever going to let it go until justice is served. Me up very early, like I could tell, I guess I looked at the clock, it was like 6 a.m. around there, and I couldn't understand why, one, they were waking me up so early, and why my dad was waking me up. Usually it was my mom, and he said, and he was like pretty calm. He just said, Jackie, Erik's been in an accident. Your mom and I have to go to the hospital. We'll be back in a little while. Like, that was all the information I got.
We know he was at the party. We know he got very highly intoxicated. We have talked to everybody at that party probably 2 or 3 times over, and we get a pretty consistent story from there. We do know that Erik did not take a ride home and he preferred to walk. He didn't live very far from the party, maybe a mile, possibly not even that, and it was a rural road that he would be traveling. We have witnesses that put him literally staggering down the road, and these witnesses are the last to see him alive.
Finally, I saw my parents' car come back, and the 2 of them got out without Erik, and then my mom and dad walking up the sidewalk, and I can really clearly see my mom's face. It was like so devastated. Like I've seen that face since then in the news when people's kids die. It's like, you've seen it. You can't even describe it. It's like, I knew he died when I looked at her face. They didn't have to tell me because it was like so much sadness.
At some point, he was obtained, killed, and then taken back to his residence and dumped in front of his residence, at which time he was run over by a car, but he was already dead at that point.
My parents hear this car going back and forth a few times, really loud, outside the window where they were sleeping. I had the window open. Turning around, coming back, they could see I think it was still a little dark, like they could see the lights in their window. It was late, like some people I guess would get up at like really early in the morning looking for their newspaper, so this guy's out watering his lawn, waiting for the newspaper. So this is probably like 5 a.m., 5:30. Maybe the newspaper was there at that time. It's all written down somewhere. He sees this car go by. He hears a girl screaming, which we now think was Amber, which I'm certain it was Amber based on a conversation I had with her. He's seen us, because he's standing right there in the yard seeing them. He describes the car, describes the girl, etc. So what they'd done then was take the dead body out, drop in the road, and go back and forth and run over it to try to make it look like this was a hit and run. The police decided, which I think was a really bad decision, we can see that his body is in like horrible shape. We can see, all these marks, burns, scrapes, etc. Big wounds. This was not, they knew it wasn't just a hit and run. The autopsy knew that he was already dead before these other wounds happened, their post-mortem. But they decided to go along with this lie because they thought the teenagers would be more likely to come forward if they thought they believed that it was a hit and run. To me, it makes sense that he wasn't totally dead. They considered, should we get help for him? And either decided, no, we're going to kill him all the way, or he just died and then they had to do something to cover it up. Another theory, which I also think has a lot of merit, is that he was just badly injured and not dead yet, but they put him in the trunk for, at that time, and tied him up. He's in the trunk, and then we know they went back to their house because other witnesses saw Brent Spalding, Amber Thomas, and Mybrit at the Spalding house, freaking out, girls crying, screaming, getting stuff out of the trunk, going around the house, moving stuff, etc., to cover it up. Another theory, which I also think has a lot of merit, is that he was just badly injured and not dead yet, but they put him in the trunk for, at that time. Bullied him at school, bullied him at the party, was like his official bully. You're not going to go hood-suffering with your bully.
Right.
He was seen pushing Erik into the pop machine, beating Erik up, calling him gay all the time. Like, he was a very, very mean to Erik, and there's many eyewitnesses to that, so that is completely false. One side of the rope around Erik and the other side around the back of the car, and then drove around the block. Brent Spalding says that, and I believe him. The multiple people that he's told that he kills Erik, I think he's telling the truth to those people. He doesn't have any reason to lie and say he killed him if he didn't. They interviewed him. His parents put him in a mental institution to protect him, and then that made the police give up. It was like, okay, so that made sense to me for a while, but then now as an adult, I think that makes no sense. Like,
Right.
You can't just go to a mental hospital to get out of murder and then they just drop it. That doesn't make sense at all. So, but I understand why my mom thought that, because then when I finally from her lawyer got the copy of the police report, that is how it read. It's like, we're investigating all these people, we're interviewing tons of people, we narrow down to the Spaldings and his friends. We try to interview as many of them as we can. We get a witness that comes in December 1983, says, Brent told me how he killed Erik. This is what he said, 4-page statement, passes a lie detector. The dad comes to the friend, says, you don't want to go to the police because, then Brent will get punished and everything will be horrible, blah, blah, blah. Like, tried to talk him out of going. But the friend went anyway. So then I think that's the time then the dad, because he knew the friend was going, takes Brent away. Then the last line is, Brent Spalding is put into this mental hospital, case open pending further investigation, ... He, bothered the medical examiner, said, you should go back and look at this again. This prosecutor, Getting, and the last prosecutor, Fink, care more about their little win rate percentage, which is just a tiny, some kind of weird macho posturing, because what citizen can you ever find that says, I want my prosecutor to have a 99% win rate, no matter what. Like, so don't arrest people if you don't think you can win. If they've got a good lawyer, don't arrest them because, winning the case is more important. No one says that. No one cares about that. It's some kind of ego thing they've got going on. So yes, you are not safe in Kalamazoo. Fink, who was the prosecutor right before Getting, he was there. I mean, and Getting used to be employed by Fink. I mean, they're all been working together. There's not been Getting claimed, our current prosecutor, that he was going to come in and clean house because he had been fired by Fink, and so he was putting himself up as like, I'm going to deal with some kind of weird macho posturing, because what citizen can you ever find that says, I want my prosecutor to have or like, I think the best people, even though I might be prejudiced, but I mean just objectively, like, my mom, church lady, librarian, my dad, engineer, I always followed the rules, always followed the law. So you have to be here longer to get justice. You have to know more people to get justice. The killer has to have a worse lawyer for you to get justice. The killer has to be poor and black to get justice. There's so many issues that I think are spoken to there and I learned and believed for, 12 years at least, that killers or people would be punished if there was, evidence for them to be punished, or if everyone knew that they did it, or if they ran around to town telling everyone they did it. But then I discovered that that's not the case. I saw that one of Erik's killers had a Facebook page, so I decided Erik should have one too. And really that was the only reason I started it, was just because I was mad that he was still out there running around doing stuff and showing up about it, and like I felt like his victims should also have a page to share or whatever. But people from Vicksburg started contacting me because some people just assumed that the case had been solved, that they'd already been arrested, because a lot of people graduated. Like, that was the graduation party that Erik went to. And everyone knew who the guilty ones were. So several people were just like, what do you mean? They never arrested them? Like, how can that even be? Because they said, okay, well, keep putting stuff out there, and then we'll see if people will start, talking and gossiping about stuff. Then the Kalamazoo Gazette did a story about, which I think was largely about how this Facebook page had brought new information to the case. And that's when my parents' lawyer contacted me and said, I have the whole case file and the police report, etc., if you'd like to read it. I said, yes, my mom signed a waiver. I went in there and read it, and that was just like, I guess, when I read that, it blew me away, because we'd heard so many rumors, but I didn't realize, like, no, all of these things are documented. Like I told you, people took lie detectors. Like, they had many people come in and say that Brent had confessed to the crime. They had, lots of evidence, and still nothing was done. Like, because I kind of thought, I guess they didn't have enough. I'm like, oh my gosh, you not only have enough, this is only like, and that only went to 1983, and then they reopened it in 2000, traveled around the country, interviewed more people, dug things up, excavated things, had physical evidence. And I don't even have the police report for all that. I just know about it. I had 2 more kids, and my mom said, you need to focus on your living children. And I got to the point where I agreed with her. I'm like, this is way too stressful, and I can't neglect my living kids to like focus on my dead brother. I would like it all to come together to where his life, would inspire them, which I think it has to some extent. But that's when, Missy and Erik's Army, the other people, there's so many people, I don't want to start listing them, because there's like tons of people who have really helped to like pick up the ball and run with it. And that really inspired me, because because I couldn't, like, and my mom didn't want me to, like, even the beginning stuff, like, I was doing that, she didn't want me to even do it, so, like, I couldn't keep doing it,
She did want me to. So, what really inspired me is that those people, that Erik's life meant enough to them, and what happened to him, that a lot of those, like some of them I knew from school, like Missy, I ran track with her, etc. But some of them I never knew, you know, it's not like they're doing it because they're our friends or relatives, like they are working for Erik's army because they, you know, care about the cause. And I never would have thought that other people, I never knew, you know, before we had the Facebook and everything else, that anyone else even remembered him. You know, the organization, it just, I'm happy with what they're doing. Like, I want the organization to be something positive, to come out of what happened to Erik. That's all I can hope for, is that that something positive can come out of it. People told me that they would tell their teenagers, you know, people my age would say, as their kids were in high school, they would tell their kids the story of Erik and use it to say to them, if you have any, thank you, that they would say to their kids, if you are at a party and you have a problem or you're in trouble, just call me no matter what, even if you're drunk or in the place you're not supposed to be, because Erik was not where he said he was going to be. You know, my parents didn't know he was going to be at that party. He was supposed to be spending the night at Bill Cook's house, his friend. These people from Vicksburg have, and beyond, have used Erik's story as a cautionary tale to their kids. You know, makes me feel like, well, maybe other people, you know, have been, if they have been saved by his story, we didn't even know about it. Or if teenagers in general just know that they can ask their parents for help. It's more important to stay alive and safe than to maintain whatever false story you've told your parents. Well, one thing, you know, my mom said back in 2010, and she said the names, but I'll just say blank is a non-person, blank is a non-person. Those are the two main people she blames. Let them destroy themselves. Let them destroy themselves is, you know, it's kind of like, well, yeah, they are doing that. It's like, okay, so yes, they will and are destroying themselves pretty much. But like, you know, that, to me, it's not good enough as a society. Yes, it's what happens when you try to avoid responsibility. But that, you know, why do people get arrested? It's not to bring Erik back. It's not for revenge. That's definitely not it. It's just because, one, to keep them from hurting other people, because they, you know, many of them have been in and out of jail hurting other people, and we don't know if that could escalate. Two, to send the message, no, you cannot commit a crime.
Justice has to be done for Erik, so he may rest in peace. There's a Facebook page, guys, that I will link below, called Justice for Erik. If you guys want to check that out, I will put the link in the description below. You're still loved, Erik, and you're very, very missed by this community. God bless you, brother. May God bring you peace. Much love, Erik. As I was leaving to go home, guys, I came across this. Justice for Erik. There you go, guys. If you have any information that can help. Let's find justice for Erik, guys.